Welcome to the Deep Dive. We cut through the noise, look at your sources, and give you the key knowledge you need fast. Today we're tackling a really important and sensitive topic, clinical depression. It affects so many, yet there's still a lot of misunderstanding around it.
It's definitely a vital conversation to have, especially these days. You know, we all feel stressed, bored, maybe anxious, sad sometimes. That's just being human. But the big question for you listening is, how do you tell the difference between that normal, everyday sadness and something else? Something like clinical depression.
And that difference is exactly what our sources dig into. Normal sadness, it's usually tied to something specific, right? It's an emotional response, and it tends to fade when things change. But the material shows that if that feeling just persists for a long time without letting up, it stops being just an emotion. It actually starts causing real physical change inside your body, specifically in your brain.
Exactly. That prolonged sadness or stress can disrupt your brain chemistry. And that leads to clinical depression. It's not just a feeling anymore. It's a sign of an imbalance, in those crucial brain chemicals. And the takeaway here is pretty urgent. If it's caused by these internal physical shifts, we really have to stop thinking it's just about willpower or needing to snap out of it.
Okay, right. Let's unpack that a bit more.
Yeah.
If we're saying this is fundamentally a physical illness, what's actually happening, what's going on under the hood? It's more than just saying chemical imbalance, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The medical research is very clear on this. The condition comes from a dysregulation involving three main neurotransmitters. These are basically the messengers in your brain controlling mood, energy, focus, pretty much everything.
Okay, and those three are?
Serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine. And it's not just listing them. Understanding what they do is key. Serotonin, that's often tied to feelings of well-being, happiness. Norepinephrine is more about alertness, energy, how you react to stress. And dopamine. Well, dopamine is huge for the brain's reward system. It drives pleasure, motivation, wanting things.
So what does all that mean then? If these systems are out of whack, it explains why the symptoms are so varied, right? It's not just feeling sad. Like if dopamine is low, maybe you lose interest in stuff you used to enjoy. And low serotonin means that sense of well-being just vanishes.
Precisely. And that's the critical point the sources really hammer home, because depression stems from these verifiable internal bodily changes, these chemical shifts.
Yeah.
It is a physical illness like diabetes or a thyroid problem. It's definitely not something you can just wish away or think positive thoughts about until it disappears. And the real danger is so many people dismiss their symptoms. They think, oh, I'm just overthinking, or they feel it's some kind of weakness. And that just leads to delays in getting proper help.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like trying to fix a broken bone by telling yourself to walk it off.
Exactly. It just doesn't work that way.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. If we accept it's this systemic physical thing, how do we spot it? The sources do a great job breaking down the 9 key warning signs into those 3 areas we touched on: emotional, physical, and cognitive. Understanding these categories seems crucial for catching it early.
Let's start with the emotional and psychological side, the internal experience. The absolute core is that persistent sadness, dejection, despair. But it's important to be specific here. It's pervasive. People often describe it as this heavy feeling or an emotional numbness that good news just can't seem to penetrate.
So it's much deeper than just, having a good cry sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. It might show up as crying for no clear reason, or maybe constant excessive worry, or being irritable all the time in a way that really starts affecting work, relationships, life. And when that state drags on for weeks or even months, it really starts to color everything.
And linked to that deep sadness is the second sign you mentioned, anhedonia, that loss of interest or pleasure in, pretty much everything.
Yes, exactly. Anhedonia. And that connects directly back to what we said about dopamine potentially being low. If the reward system isn't firing, why would you want to do things? Which leads straight into social withdrawal. It's not enjoyable, so people pull back. And then the internal story, the way someone sees themselves, it gets really dark. That's the third sign, this negative self-perception. We're talking deep feelings of worthlessness, real hopelessness, maybe feeling like you're just a burden on everyone. It's way beyond just having low self-esteem. It's like a fundamental distortion in thinking.
And that distortion can unfortunately get worse. The fourth emotional sign being those constant negative thoughts, sometimes frighteningly, about death or just not wanting to be alive anymore. So those 4 really paint the internal picture.
Right. And then, moving beyond the mind, the body itself shows major signs of distress. Which brings us to the physical symptoms. Often these show up as problems with eating and sleep, and both of those are heavily influenced by serotonin and norepinephrine systems.
Yeah, the sources highlighted that these can go either way, which is interesting. Like eating problems could mean losing your appetite completely and losing weight, or it could mean eating way more than usual, maybe for comfort. And the same for sleep.
Exactly the same variation. Sleep issues could be severe insomnia, just tossing and turning all night, feeling completely unrested. Or it could be the opposite, hypersomnia, sleeping maybe 12, 14 hours a day and still feeling utterly exhausted. That internal balance is just gone.
You also mentioned abnormal movement. That sounds quite specific. What does that look like?
It is specific. It refers to psychomotor changes. Sometimes you see people with significantly slowed movements. Their speech might be slow. Their thinking feels sluggish. That's called psychomotor retardation. But conversely, some people experience the opposite. Psychomotor agitation. They might be really restless, constantly pacing, fidgeting, unable to sit still.
And the last physical one is fatigue, which, again, the source of stress is different from just being tired after a long day.
Absolutely. This is a profound physical weakness, a lack of energy that sleep just doesn't fix. It can make even basic daily tasks like having a shower or fixing a simple meal feel completely overwhelming, like climbing a mountain.
Okay, so we've got the emotional side, the physical side. Now, the third piece,
Yeah.
the cognitive symptoms, the brain fog you mentioned, which directly impacts functioning day to day.
Yes, the brain fog. The main symptom here is a noticeable drop in intellectual abilities. We're talking about serious trouble concentrating. Maybe you can't follow a conversation or read a book or focus on work that needs mental effort. And alongside that, often, is impaired memory, especially short-term memory, forgetting things constantly.
Wow. So it really is a breakdown across the board. Emotionally, it's despair. Physically, exhaustion and systems going haywire. And cognitively, just not being able to think straight.
Exactly. These 9 signs across those 3 domains, emotional, physical, cognitive, indius, they form a kind of spectrum. They can range from mild to severely debilitating, but they are definite warning signs that need proper attention and, importantly, a proper diagnosis.
Right. But the really crucial part here, the good news, is that the source material is very clear. Depression is highly treatable. Recovery is definitely possible, often with really good outcomes. So let's dive into the treatment approaches. The research lays out 4 main ones, starting with the primary method.
That would be pharmacological treatment, antidepressant medications. These are specifically designed, scientifically, to target and help restore the balance of those neurotransmitters we discussed earlier. Serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine, they're essentially chemical correctors for what is, at its root, a chemical problem.
And what really struck me here was the duration. This isn't like taking an antibiotic for a week or two, is it?
No, not at all. For someone experiencing depression for the first time, the typical treatment course is usually 9 to 12 months, and that's after the symptoms have already improved. The real challenge often lies in sticking with it. People start to feel better after a few months, which is great, but they might think, okay, I'm cured now, and stop the medication too soon.
Which leads to that startling statistic you mentioned, something like an 80% chance of relapse. Why is that relapse rate so high if someone stops early? Does the brain just snap back?
The sources suggest that, yeah, the brain needs that full 9 to 12-month period to really adapt, to stabilize that new, healthier chemical balance. It's like it needs time for the changes to become permanent structurally. So if you stop the medication before that stabilization happens, the research shows there's up to an 80% chance that depression will come back, often severely. Because the underlying chemical stability wasn't fully established, that number is, well, it really highlights how serious this illness is, and why sticking to the prescribed treatment is absolutely non-negotiable.
Wow, 80%. That really drives home the point that this needs sustained, long-term medical care, not just a quick fix. Okay, so beyond medication, psychotherapy is also key, often used together.
Oh, absolutely critical. And current research is pretty solid on this. Combining medication with psychotherapy usually gives the best results. It addresses both the biological imbalance and the thoughts and behaviors associated with it.
The sources brought up cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. For listeners who might just know the letters, what does that actually involve?
Right, CBT. It's a very practical, goal-focused therapy. It helps people identify those negative, often distorted thought patterns that depression fuels the feelings of worthlessness, the hopelessness we talked about. So the medication helps fix the chemistry, and CBT helps you sort of retrain your brain to challenge those negative thoughts and develop healthier ways of thinking and coping. Supportive psychotherapy is also common, helping manage stress and providing, well, support.
And then for cases that are more severe or don't respond to the first lines of treatment, there are more specialized options.
Yes, for treatment-resistant depression. One is transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS. It's non-invasive. It uses magnetic pulses generated by coils placed on the head to gently stimulate specific nerve cells in the brain involved in mood regulation. It's mainly considered for patients who haven't had success with several types of medication or maybe can't take medication for other health reasons.
And then the most intensive option mentioned is electroconvulsive therapy, ECT.
Right. ECT has a bit of a public image problem from the past, but modern ECT is a very different, carefully managed medical procedure. It's generally reserved for the most severe acute situations, like when patients haven't responded to multiple other treatments, when symptoms are incredibly severe and debilitating, or particularly when there's an immediate high risk of suicide. These intensive treatments really underscore how serious depression can become if not effectively treated.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit and connect all this back to the bigger picture. Because after looking at the biology, the symptoms, the treatments,
Yeah.
we really have to tackle that lingering, damaging social stigma around depression.
Absolutely. Reframing how we think about it is so important. We've established pretty clearly, I think, that this is a physical illness rooted in brain chemistry. So that common idea that people with depression are somehow weak or just aren't trying hard enough or lack mental strength, it's completely at odds with the science. It's just wrong.
Yet, the reality check from the research is stark. The sources are clear. Developing depression isn't about a single cause, it's multifactorial. It involves things totally outside a person's control.
Things like your genetic predisposition, major environmental stressors like trauma or chronic stress, even factors from your early life and upbringing, none of that is a reflection of someone's character or willpower. It's a complex interplay leading to a biological breakdown.
And getting that right, that reframing, is so crucial for recovery. So the final takeaway for you listening is really this. When people get the right treatment, the medical help, the therapy, and just as importantly, get understanding and support from the people around them, they absolutely have the chance to recover fully and get back to living a normal, healthy life.
It does raise a really important follow-up question, though, doesn't it? Given what we know about that huge risk, that 80% relapse rate, if medication is stopped too soon, how can we as a society, maybe through healthcare systems or community support, do better? How can we better support people through that critical first 9 to 12 months of treatment to help ensure they can stick with it, minimize that incredibly high risk of relapse? Recognizing that staying on treatment long-term isn't just a personal challenge, it's often a systemic and logistical one, too. Something to think about.